What Angela saw in her rearview mirror that Tuesday morning should have been routine. But the way Officer Hollies' hand moved to his holster before he even reached her window, that was her first warning something was very, very wrong. She just didn't know she'd been targeted long before she turned the key in her ignition. The coffee hit Angela's scrubs the exact moment his fist slammed the window. "Step out now." Her hands froze on the wheel. She'd been a cardiac nurse for 30 years. She'd held beating hearts in her palms. She'd stared down death in sterile white rooms. But this raw hatred in a stranger's eyes, this was different. Officer Derek Hollies, badge 4471, 6'2" of pure arrogance. What he didn't know, Angela Richardson had been expecting him. Not him specifically, but someone like him, because 3 weeks ago her neighbor, another black professional, another luxury car, had been pulled over on this exact stretch of highway. Same officer, same accusations, same rage. That's why Angela's phone was already mounted, already recording, already uploading to the cloud in real time. She prepared for this moment. She just never imagined what she'd uncover. "May I ask why I was pulled over?" Hollies didn't answer. His eyes were scanning, hunting, the leather seats, the touchscreen, the medical badge dangling from her mirror, the one that said 30 years of service. Then his gaze landed on her face. And she saw it, that flicker, that calculation. "This your vehicle?" The question dripped with disbelief, with accusation, with something darker she couldn't quite name. "Yes, sir, registered in my name." He leaned closer, too close. His breath fogged her window. "A 2023 Mercedes-Benz S-Class. You expect me to believe that?" And there it was, the line she'd been waiting for, the confession he didn't even know he was making. Because here, what Officer Hollies didn't know. Angela's son Marcus wasn't just a state trooper. He was working undercover for internal affairs, investigating a pattern of racist traffic stops in this exact precinct. And Angela had volunteered, without Marcus's knowledge, to be the bait. She bought the Merced specifically for this, drove this route every day for 3 weeks, made herself visible, made herself a target. Because sometimes, to catch a predator, you have to let yourself be prey. "Officer, I've worked at Memorial Hermann for 30 years. Ma'am, I've heard every story in the book. Step out of the vehicle." He smirked when he said it, actually smirked. Angela's heart hammered. This was it, the moment the case hinged on. "But I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not going to ask again." His hand moved to his holster. And that's when Angela made the call that would detonate both their lives. She reached for her phone. "Don't move." The weapon was half drawn now. "I'm getting my phone to record this. I have that right." "Put your hands where I can see them." "I know my rights." Hollies' face twisted. "Your rights? Out here on this street I am the law. Your rights are whatever I say they are." Perfect, every word captured, every threat documented. But Angela wasn't prepared for what he did next. Hollies called for backup, not 1 car, 4. Within 6 minutes, Angela was sitting on the curb in her medical scrubs while 5 officers tore apart her Mercedes. Her phone was still recording from her pocket, the cloud upload still running. Everything was going according to plan. Until she heard Hollies whisper to his partner, "Check the trunk. There's supposed to be a package." Angela's blood turned to ice. "A package? What package?" She watched Officer Martinez pop the trunk, watched him reach inside, watched him pull out. A brick-sized bundle wrapped in brown paper. Her trunk, her car, a package she'd never seen before in her life. Hollies' smile was venomous. Well, what do we have here?" This wasn't a racist traffic stop. This was a frame. Angela's mind raced. When had someone accessed her car? Last night it was in her garage. This morning she'd driven straight from home. Unless No, impossible. But Holly's next words confirmed her worst fear. Angela Richardson, you're under arrest for possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute. The handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Martinez looked uncomfortable. One of the other officers wouldn't meet her eyes. But Holly's looked triumphant. You have the right to remain silent. I need to make a phone call. Angela's voice couldn't shake, not now. You'll get your call at the station. I need to make it now. My son, he needs to know where I am. Something in her tone made Holly's pause. Maybe it was the steel beneath her fear. Maybe it was the way she held his gaze without flinching. One call, make it quick. Angela's fingers trembled as she dialed, but not from fear. From rage. The phone rang twice. Mama, everything okay? Marcus, her son, her protector, the state trooper who'd spent 6 months building a case against this exact precinct. But there was something Marcus didn't know. Something Angela had discovered 2 weeks ago when she found the encrypted files on his laptop. Marcus wasn't just investigating racist cops. He was investigating a drug trafficking ring that had infiltrated the Houston Police Department. A ring that used racial profiling as cover. A ring that planted evidence on innocent black drivers to maintain their pipeline. A ring that Officer Derek Hollies was running. And Angela, God help her, had walked straight into the spider's web. Marcus, she said carefully, knowing Hollies was listening. I need you. Highway 59, just before the Kirby exit. They found something in my car. A pause, then, what did they find, Mama? His voice had changed, gone cold, professional. He knew. A package, brown paper in my trunk. Silence then. Don't say another word, I'm 2 minutes away. The line went dead. Holly snatched the phone from her hand. Your son can visit you in lockup, get her in the car. But Martinez stepped forward. For the first time he spoke up. Derek, I think we should wait, if her son's a cop. I don't care if her son is the Pope, load her up. That's when they heard it, the sirens. Not city police. State, federal, multiple agencies converging. And Hollies' face, for the first time, showed genuine fear. The first vehicle to arrive was Marcus's patrol car. It was an unmarked black SUV with federal plates. Then another, then 3 more. DEA, FBI, Texas Rangers. Angela watched Hollies' hand drift toward his weapon, watched Martinez take 3 steps back, watched the other officers suddenly remember they had somewhere, anywhere else to be. The SUV doors opened. And out stepped Marcus Richardson, but not in his state trooper uniform. In a DEA tactical vest. Behind him, a woman Angela had never seen. FBI badge, stone-cold expression, assault rifle. Behind her, a dozen more federal agents, weapons drawn. Faces hidden behind tactical masks. Hollies went white. Officer Derek Hollies, Marcus said, his voice carrying across the highway like a death sentence. You're under arrest for drug trafficking, evidence tampering, civil rights violations, and conspiracy to commit murder. Murder. Angela's stomach dropped. The FBI agent stepped forward, reading from a tablet. Jason Mitchell, age 23, died in custody 18 months ago following a traffic stop conducted by Officer Hollies. Cause of death, blunt force trauma. Toxicology report showed traces of fentanyl that Mr. Mitchell's family insists he never used. She looked up. We exhumed the body last week, found evidence of evidence planting. The fentanyl was introduced post-mortem. Martinez actually staggered backward. 2 other officers dropped to their knees, hands behind their heads. But Holly stood frozen, his world collapsing in real time. You set this up, he whispered, staring at Angela. You were bait. Angela stood, still in handcuffs. Marcus moved to unlock them, but she shook her head. Not yet. I want him to see me like this. I want him to remember. She walked toward Holly's, each step deliberate. 7 people, she said quietly. 7 black drivers. You pulled them over, planted drugs, ruined their lives, and Jason Mitchell, you killed him to cover your tracks. Holly said nothing. My neighbor was victim number 4, Angela continued. She told me her story. I did some digging, found a pattern, contacted the FBI. She smiled, bitter and cold. And then I bought a Mercedes and drove this route every single day, waiting for you to take the bait. You're lying, Holly spat. That package in your trunk is filled with powdered sugar, the FBI agent interjected. We planted it there at 400 hours this morning when Officer Holly's accomplice, Officer Ryan Shaw, currently in custody, accessed Mrs. Richardson's vehicle using a duplicated garage door opener. She held up an evidence bag. Inside, a garage remote with Houston PD property stickers. We've been watching you for 6 months, Holly's. Every move, every stop, every planted package. We just needed you to do it one more time. And you, she turned to Martinez, you knew, you covered for him. Martinez was crying now. I didn't know about Mitchell. I swear I didn't know he killed anyone. I just looked the other way during the stops. That's all. That's all, Marcus's voice was ice. 7 people had their lives destroyed because you looked the other way. One of them is dead. He nodded to the other agents, take them all. As federal agents swarmed the scene, Marcus finally unlocked Angela's handcuffs. You weren't supposed to be part of this, he said quietly. I told them no family. Angela rubbed her wrists, and I told them I was doing it anyway. Those 7 people. One of them could have been you, Marcus. 1 traffic stop, 1 racist cop, 1 planted bag, that's all it takes. You could have been killed. But I was, she touched his face. And now 7 people get their lives back. Jason Mitchell's family gets answers, and the next black driver on this highway, they're a little bit safer. Marcus pulled her into a hug. But Angela was watching Holly's being loaded into the federal transport van, and her expression was granite. This wasn't over. Not even close. The news broke 3 hours later. Not just about Holly's arrest. About the others. 12 officers, 3 precincts, a trafficking network that stretched from Houston to the Mexican border. But the real bombshell came at 6 p.m. when the FBI held their press conference. Angela sat in her living room watching the screen. Marcus stood beside her, still in his tactical vest. The FBI director stepped to the microphone. Today's arrests are the culmination of Operation Clean Badge, a 14-month joint investigation into police corruption and civil rights violations. What began as a case of racial profiling evolved into something much darker, a systemic drug trafficking operation that targeted Black and Latino motorists to maintain cover. The screen flashed to surveillance footage, Angela's traffic stop, the planted package, Holly's whispered instructions. But then another clip. Jason Mitchell, 23, pulled over 18 months ago. The timestamp showed Holly's dragging him from his car, showed the struggle, showed the moment Mitchell's body went limp, showed Holly's planting drugs in Mitchell's pocket while he lay unconscious. Angela's hand flew to her mouth. Where did that footage come from? Marcus's jaw was tight. Dashboard camera from a passing motorist. They didn't come forward at the time because they were afraid. But after your stop went viral, after they saw what you did, they sent us the file. The director continued. Jason Mitchell's death was ruled an accidental overdose, but new evidence proves it was homicide. Officer Holly's will face murder charges. The camera cut to Mitchell's mother, tears streaming down her face. For 18 months, they told me my baby was a drug addict. They told me he brought this on himself. But I knew my son. And now the world knows the truth. Angela felt tears burning in her eyes. One mother, she whispered, one son gone. Marcus squeezed her shoulder, but now she has answers and justice. The trials lasted 8 months. Holly's, life without parole for murder, plus 40 years for trafficking and civil rights violations. Martinez, 15 years for conspiracy and obstruction. 10 other officers, sentences ranging from 5 to 25 years. But the real victory came in the policy changes. Mandatory body cameras, no exceptions. Independent oversight committees with civilian representation. Automatic federal review for any in-custody death. And a database, publicly accessible, tracking officer complaints and disciplinary actions. Angela's name was on every reform bill. Richardson's Law, they called it. 1 year later, Angela stood at a podium in Washington, D.C. Congressional hearing, police reform legislation, the whole nation watching. "My name is Angela Richardson," she began, her voice steady, "and I'm here to tell you about the day I volunteered to be prey." The room was silent. "I bought a Mercedes I couldn't quite afford. I drove the same highway every day for 3 weeks. I made myself a target because I knew there was a predator hunting people who looked like me, driving cars that looked too nice, living lives that seemed too successful." She paused. "But here's what I learned. I wasn't brave. I was terrified. I thought I was prepared, but when that officer's hand went to his gun, when I saw that hatred in his eyes, I realized something. This could happen to anyone, any time, any highway." Jason Mitchell was twas about every mother who'd lost a child and been told to be quiet. Every driver who'd been pulled over for the crime of existing while black. Every person who'd ever been told their rights were, whatever I say they are. 3 years after Angela's arrest, traffic stops in Houston were down 34%. False arrest complaints, down 67%. In-custody deaths, down 89%. But the real change was quieter, more personal. Angela still drove her Mercedes to work every morning, still took Highway 59. But now, when she saw those blue and red lights in her rearview mirror, she didn't feel fear. She felt power. Because she'd learned something that day on the curb, handcuffed and accused. Your voice is your weapon, your truth is your shield, and sometimes, just sometimes, the system works if you force it to. Marcus eventually left the DEA, became a defense attorney specializing in police misconduct cases. Denise Mitchell started a foundation in Jason's name, providing legal support to families of in-custody deaths. And Angela went back to work at Memorial Hermann Hospital. Same cardiac unit, same scrubs, same route to work. But everything was different. Because here's the secret they don't want you to know. You don't need to be extraordinary to change the world. You just need to refuse to be silent. One traffic stop. One phone call. One decision to press record and never look away. That's all it took. And the next Angela Richardson. She's out there right now. She might be you. And Ty, 3 years old, he worked at a grocery store. He was driving home from his shift when Officer Hollies pulled him over for driving suspiciously. 3 hours later, Jason was dead. She looked directly at the camera. His mother spent 18 months being told her son was a drug addict, being told he killed himself, being told to let it go. But she didn't, and neither did I, and neither should you. The applause was deafening. But the real moment came after the hearing. Angela was walking to her car when a woman approached, older, maybe 70, tears in her eyes. "Ms. Richardson." Angela turned. "I'm Denise Mitchell, Jason's mother." The world stopped. Angela pulled her into a hug right there on the Capitol steps, both women crying, holding each other like they were the only two people in the world. "Thank you," Denise whispered. Thank you for giving me my son back." "I didn't." "You did. The world knows now. He wasn't an addict. He was my baby. And you made sure they couldn't bury the truth." Angela held her tighter. And in that moment she understood. This was never about one traffic stop.